Hello to everyone, and so just to check that you well understood the first talk, I will continue on the same topic. Just to explain a little bit what I will be talking about. So it will be regarding cyber. The word cyber is not present here. You will see that there are also potentially other applications to other insurance fields at some point. But the idea is to look at some cyber event, and with the idea of trying, using basically almost the same tool as in the talk of Caroline, looking at an accumulation scenario. That is, as Caroline said, a large amount of claims occurring in a short amount of time. And so the first thing, if you are very optimistic, consists in saying that it's not the perimeter of insurance, because you are in such situation in cases where, in fact, you go somehow beyond mutualization, beyond classical risk pooling, because you do not have the ability to absorb the terrible results of some policyholders by good result on the rest of the portfolio. But in fact, what I would like to first convince you using from some examples is that in the case of cyber, you cannot simply say, okay, we can exclude this type of event by designing appropriately the contract, because as you will see, there are some specificities. For example, in case of pandemic, you can exclude some situation when business interruption is caused, for example, by administrative decisions that can be excluded from the contract. Here you will see that it's more difficult. And yes. And so first of all, I will not go with the definition of cyber that was already mentioned by Caroline, but just to mention an important point is the fact that the definition of cyber, it's actually a big question. And in fact, you can qualify many events as cyber. And since in insurance policy the question is to well determine the perimeter of the coverage, then it can create some ambiguity. And so I just mentioned that to tell you that if you want, for example, to exclude accumulation scenario because you think that insurance has not the ability to absorb them, then you will have to face the fact that from the definition itself of cyber risk, there is already a question. So regarding these accumulation scenarios, Caroline already mentioned the case of WannaCry, so I will be very short about that. Just to, I would like to mention it, just to mention, in fact, important things related to the modeling of such accumulation scenario. The first is that, so WannaCry, worldwide cyber attack contaminating lots of computers. The idea is that if you want to replicate such kind of event, and when you are looking at cyber insurance problem, you do not want to have only the final outcome of WannaCry. You really need to understand the dynamic full time of the event. In fact, for at least two reasons. The first is inside the insurance product. In the fact that in the insurance product, you have not only financial repairment for claims, you also have some assistance to the policyholders that are victims of such claims. And in fact, if you look at what attracts potential customers of cyber insurance contracts, especially SME want cyber insurance not necessarily because of the financial component of the repair, it's of course important, but also because insurance is a way to learn about their own risk and to have access to some expertise of their information system. An SME is not necessarily specialized in the field of cyber. So you need to understand through times how much you will assist your policyholder. And the second thing is that, and Caroline showed it in her talk, in fact, you also can act during the crisis. And in the case of WannaCry, in fact, you could act in two different ways. First of all, because in fact, this vulnerability that was used for the hackers to enter the system was in fact known long before, and you knew how to fix it. So if you know that there is a virus spreading around, if you can inform your policyholder, you will allow them to protect themselves. That's the first point. And then during the crisis appeared also something which was called a kill switch. That is a way to suppress the damages caused by WannaCry. If you communicate this kill switch soon enough, you reduce the damage. So there is the idea to model the dynamic and the reaction, which is important. The other example also already mentioned, but just again to mention some interesting fact, it's NotPetya. So NotPetya, it's something that should not exist theoretically, because you see it's the same gateway of attack for the virus, and it happens 1 month later. So everyone should have been protected about WannaCry. So it's just to say, because my talk will be about the question of calibration, and so about statistics, you may have the impression that in cyber it's pointless to do statistics because there is no stability. We somehow have the idea that hackers produce lots and lots of innovation and always change their channel of attack. Here you see 2 big attacks and same channel, and simply they succeeded because people were not cautious enough. So that's the first point I would like to mention. And also the fact that you see something here, NotPetya initially struck Ukraine and was very probably targeted from Russia, because in fact inside the codes of NotPetya things typed in Russian, so it's very likely that Russia was involved in that. And so first of all, you see that the geographic component in cyber is not totally absent. Of course, then it spreads because the companies that were struck had linked. There was a network connecting Ukraine companies to the rest of the world. But in fact, at the origin, it strikes a particular country. So there is something which is mixed related to this geographic component. And the last thing I would like to mention about NotPetya is also the fact that insurance companies, some insurance companies, tried not to pay for NotPetya, saying that it is an act of war. It is an act of cyber war. And here you go again with the definition of the perimeter. In fact, you cannot define cyber war, and so you cannot exclude this. Okay, so even if some countries attributed this attack to Russian intelligence, you cannot, strictly speaking, put that into an insurance policy right now. So this means that this type of contagious cyber event, these types of accumulation scenarios, it can happen, and you may have to deal with it as an insurance company. So last example, but please do not get any ideas regarding this slide. I'd like to keep it purely professional between us. But the oldest of us may remember about this old virus, I love you. It was in fact so it was not so sympathetic. So you see, it was in 2000, if I correctly remember. And it's also an example of cyber attack which was viral. So the ID, it was a very nice message that you received from someone you knew. So you have someone who sent you a mail saying, I love you, please open this thing and you will have a nice surprise. So you are very impressed by this message. But in the end, it destroys your computer and it sends message and I love you messages to all of the mail address into your mail server, and so it spreads and it struck a lot of people looking for love. So it was so known as the love bug or love letter. And why do I mention that? First, because you see that it's quite old. The losses are huge, and to tell you that it does not only concern private companies, private industries. Right now, the field of cyber insurance, it's more for companies, not for individuals. But in the end, probably there will be a need for covering regular people, individuals, against this risk, and it's also something which could lead to huge losses. So I pass with the last bullet point. Just the authors of this virus, in fact, were identified and never went to jail. I could explain why a little bit later, but that's maybe not the most important point of this talk, but it's somehow funny. So regarding this talk, so it will be very similar to what Caroline showed, but the idea is to design accumulation scenarios. And it's less a question of pricing, to answer a question, than a question of trying to stress the portfolio. And in this sense, there is a need right now to stress the portfolio and to try to understand if it can resist to such accumulation scenarios. Because as you will see, of course, trying to price such events, it will rely on many assumptions. So really the idea is to say, will it resist? In what extent can it resist? And just, I will insist on the question of calibrating models to have realistic accumulation scenarios. So, I mean, plausible accumulation scenarios, but of course, you will see that there are lots of imperfection. The idea being that with this type of tools, the idea is to design stochastic scenarios to be able to look at a large set of situations. You also have the necessity, and it is done in an insurance company, to design deterministic catastrophic scenarios and to look at the outcome of these scenarios. But when you're doing deterministic scenarios, first you need to have imagination. And in fact, there are typically 3 or 4 or maybe 5 type of deterministic catastrophe scenarios regarding accumulation. And then to explore the outcomes, you will need to have some time to look precisely at the outcomes. So here, with the idea of looking at stochastic scenarios, we can explore rougher scenarios, but a large number of them in order to dimension the response. And we will look at the question of the calibration. So first, in the first part, I will be quite short with the model that already presented Caroline. Here it's a question of trying to fit the parameters of the model from macroscopic data and then from historical data from the portfolio. I will explain later on. So you can find many similarities with the slide of Caroline. It's because I hacked her computer and stole some graphs. Just to recall you this framework that was developed before regarding the individual modeling of policyholders. So typically it's to proceed as if we were looking at true biological disease. And so here we will mention the very simplest model with independence, with non-stochastic epidemiological models, but it can of course be extended to a more general framework. So I'll typically explain how we model, in fact, the time of infection here. That's the big idea, that's how to model a cyber virus. So recalling that there is a link between the hazard rate, which defines the distribution of the time of infection, with some biological models. Here you see the very simple SIR model. So susceptible, that's, I recall, the policyholders that may be infected, sorry, not necessarily the policyholder, because we model an infection at a more global level. That is, all the people in the population able to be struck by the virus, by the attack. Then here you have the ones that are infectious, that is, they are contaminated and they propagate. What is important here is that they propagate the attack. And here they are not necessarily recovered, they can be removed in the sense that they do not contribute to the dynamic anymore. So that's the most simple model that you can think of. Of course, you can also go back to this, this part here, but only if you model on a long term, because usually here we are looking at scenarios that last 10 days, and when companies are struck, in fact, you should not be misled by recovered. People who are companies that are in recovered, they are still in lots of pain. In fact, it takes several months and sometimes years, and sometimes it even kills the companies to recover, to truly recover from a cyber attack. So here it's only that they do not contribute anymore to the spread of the contagion. So now what we want to do is to look, to take into account the heterogeneity of the populations that we consider, in the sense that you have different categories of policyholders. Here you see, I will use the letter J here to represent the categories. So the categories, it's categories of policyholders. It can also be, no, it's typically categories of policyholder here, sorry. And it's typically sectors of industry. It can be also linked to the geographical area in which the companies operate, the potential victim operate. It can also include some information about the structure of the company, the budget which is spent to cybersecurity, things like that. The thing is that you have categories. And these categories, they contaminate themselves, but they also contaminate the other categories. So you see here in this system of differential equation, you see parameters beta kj, which represent in fact how much category K contaminates category J. And just to say that this beta kj, there is no particular reason for which it could be it would be symmetric. That is, category K can contaminate category J at a certain rate, but on the other hand, category J may protect, may contaminate more category K because there is less protection against this source of infection. So the first difference with a classical epidemiological model, it's the fact that the beta kj, the values of the parameter are not the same because we are not on the same time scale. That's the first thing. The other thing, which is maybe less obvious, it's the size of the different compartments. In the sense that, for example, there was a question regarding if the insurance company knew what were the digital tools used by the different policyholders. In fact, usually they don't. And in fact, even Microsoft isn't able to say how many computers are currently running using a Windows operating system. And so if you look at the different versions of these systems, it's even more difficult. So that's another parameter which must be discussed when you calibrate the model with experts. It's the size of the different compartments. And the other difference stands here, in fact, in this function alpha j. That's what we call the attack function. It's the fact that you have some initialization by malicious actors. And it describes, so first you have typically, we will discuss that later, but a burst of attacks in a category of the population. And then you have the contagion scheme that starts after that. So, yes, so it's right now the question about the attack function alpha j. So how do you calibrate this attack typically? So typically you have scenarios like that. Some expert tends to like scenarios in which you have first a wave of attacks that lasts even less than 1 day, and then the rest is purely a contagion. Or sometimes you have successive phases because you also have mutations of cyber virus. Of course, it does not work in the same way, but hackers update, in fact, their attack, and so you can have a second wave. And typically, and also behind alpha j, there is the question, which category of the policyholder is more targeted than the other initially. And so that's questions that have to be dealt with, talking with people from what is called threat intelligence. That's understanding the strategy of the attackers. The big question is, of course, this matrix here, this matrix which represents, in fact, the connection between the different categories. So here you see a colored example which is from our paper. And so it's only for illustration. Do not take into account do not believe that you should necessarily use the values that are here. It was just to illustrate how it could be calibrated. So typically the big thing is to find this matrix. So here it's a normalized version, in fact. If you sum all the coefficients, you finally find 1. And I'll just explain briefly how you can try to guess some plausible matrices like that from macroscopic data. So typically, so this matrix B, our target, there is an intensity parameter, beta, and there is a normalized matrix here which tries to define, in fact, the network. Everything about the topology of the network is in this matrix B0. You can see as a matrix of a graph with the idea that you that this matrix is not symmetric, not necessarily symmetric. So you do not go from node A to node B at the same rate than from node B to node A, in full generality. And so how do you calibrate B0? In fact, you can calibrate it using flows from different sectors to understand how they are in contact with each other. So in the paper, we used flows that are, in fact, not typically linked to digital flows. It's flows of added value, but it's just to understand that you need very few data to compute these flows. And that's an important thing because, in fact, you cannot expect, as an insurance company, to have lots of information to calibrate your model. You do not know the true connections between your policyholders. So you must find some measures of flows which can be provided by typically by cybersecurity firms who have such kind of indicators. And then beta, it's an intensity parameter which will be calibrated to define the strength of your scenario. Once you have a connection matrix, then you ask yourself, do I want to simulate 2 times, 3 times, 4 times WannaCry? And it's again a question of talking with threat intelligence regarding which assumption is reasonable. So then, once you have calibrated everything, I'll be very brief, but you can obtain many things. Here you see a simulation about an attack on a given sector, and then you see that it spreads to other sectors of activities. And what is nice, so it's very small here, but you can also see what are the potential cross-infections between sectors depending on the starting point of the attack. So it's a way also to identify which kind of categories in your portfolio are somehow systemic, in the sense that even if they are not targeted, they can transmit at a strong rate. So you can improve your protection using that, and also looking at how diversified is your portfolio. So if you really want to do a premium, Xavier, regarding this, you can work a little bit, but you must put some probability on first the attack and also on the intensity parameter. And eventually you can also put some probability on the connection matrix. And so I'll be very brief about that. It's described in the paper. But here you have these things, which is the total number of victims based on the different parameters of the model. It's something which can be computed very fast. Everything also is in the paper, but it's via solving a fixed point problem, which can be solved very rapidly. And then you mitigate with respect to the probability of attacks that again comes usually from threat intelligence. So next, to move with the next phase, so here we are in designing the matrix, only the connection matrix, only with external macroscopic data. But the thing is that you can also try to incorporate information coming from your own portfolio. And so in this case, I will just give you a flavor about of this work, because it's still work in progress. But the question becomes typically to evaluate a graph, because the matrix B, already being said, it's a type of graph. And the direction we are looking into, in fact, is inspired from models that are used very often in ecology. In ecology, the question is typically to say, so we are different places, and we have different spaces. And we want to know if some species like to be with each other, with the idea that some of them may like other species more because they eat the other species, and the rest are eaten by the others. But removing this question of causality, so we have some places, and we count the different species at each place. Here, what will be the question? So it will not be a geographical problem. It will be there will be a timeline. So we'll consider different instants, and at each instant, we do not have spaces. We have categories of policyholders, and we want to know when policyholder K is stroke. Is category J more affected? So it's typically a question that is very much linked to correlation analysis, but here the specificity is that we look at count data. So there are techniques that are more adapted to that, and typically one of them is what's called Poisson log normal framework. So the idea is to assume that there is some hidden factor. So here Nij, so I it's the time, and J it's again the categories of policyholders. And we have here in this vector Zi, we have a matrix that translates the correlation between the different categories. And so in fact, if you look at these previous data, so you register how many claims you had in your different categories through times. then you can retrieve this matrix using, I look at the time, I still have a little more time. And the nice thing is that if you assume that, in fact, when you are in a low regime situation, that is in the absence of accumulation scenario. Perhaps I should be more clear about what we want to do. We want to understand what would be the true connection between our policyholders. But we do not have a massive event that would allow us to really understand this connection. So we must anticipate. And the question is to say that the attack, there are a superposition of two things. First thing, there are regular attacks that are not viral. And so we can try to filter this component and then look into some small contagious event with the idea that if we only observed small epidemics, we can do some approximation. And from this approximation, you can link the matrix here, the covariance matrix here, to the connection matrix I showed you earlier in the epidemiological model. You need to have assumption. Perhaps the second is even the more important. You assume that all the small epidemics that you observed will be of the same kind that the one you're trying to simulate. And the first one, it's a restriction. To identify your problem, you are forced to assume, if you rely on this Poisson-Normal approximation, that the connection matrix is symmetric. So it's a restriction, but of course it's a price to pay to use something that are relatively well understood regarding the estimation of this matrix. Okay, so perhaps I will be a little bit fast about that, but typically you have to estimate the matrix, you need to rely on things that are called variational EM algorithm. Okay. Just to say that we can also modify a little bit this approach to also introduce some Bayesian analysis. That is, you can combine this frequentist approach with the knowledge of a prior. That is, you think that your connection matrix is close to a reference matrix, and you can adapt and mix the two strategies, but I'll look at the time and maybe we can discuss that perhaps later if you are interested. So regarding the conclusion, just to say that first, what we presented here, it's a relatively general model to look into accumulation scenarios in cyber, but things are still to be done to be even more general. First of all, regarding also something that Caroline mentioned, this colonial pipeline attack, so it's an attack against a gas provider in the US. Just to tell you that here you see an event that is not contagion, strictly speaking, at least not in the cyber sense. So you have a unique entity, which is stroke, and then the consequence spread, but not in the cyber world, in the physical world. And so this type of modeling, you mix, in fact, two rates, if you want to model it with two time scale, if you want to model it with the tools we presented. And so it changed a little bit the picture. And also perhaps just to give you something to show you something that is also related to one of the previous questions, and which is an accumulation scenario which is not contagious. So, and so you must use a different strategy, other strategies to try to model that. So the SolarWinds example, it's an attack which is an example of what is called a supply chain attack. So the idea is that you want to you want to touch ultimately the US government. But it's really hard to hack the US government. So instead of hacking the US government, you hack the software provider of the US government. And so, in fact, SolarWinds was a security solution that was used by many institutions. Some of them were US government, but also some large companies. And when customers updated their systems, in fact, they uploaded some version which was infected. And so SolarWinds was the society that was targeted. And through this single channel, because the tool was shared by many users, then they are simultaneously struck with possible terrible consequences. So here you see that it's a different kind of contagion and different kind of scenario when you need to also have additional models to try to look into this kind of things. So just to conclude briefly, what we tried to show you, it's a relatively flexible framework to design contagion scenarios with the idea to provide something simple in the sense that it's very difficult to calibrate these models to have realistic scenarios, and a requirement of the model was to have models that are sometimes rough, but that rely on a relatively small amount of parameters. Of course, you can complexify, but if you complexify, you need, of course, more data, more information to calibrate them. So, just to mention that you can also use experience from portfolio to model this connection matrix. And so, here you see some references, and thank you for your attention.